My plan was to make a video on a completely different subject today, but I woke up feeling so weird with complete brain fog. I'd slept in because I had a really disturbed night of sleep, and I know the reason that this is happening. It's something that I've been working on. I've been working on my own trauma from childhood. It's been so overwhelming to me and disruptive in my life. And it's not always like this. Most of the time, I'm fine. I can go about my life and do things, and I've got, some days I've got lots of energy. But quite often, this thing overwhelms me. So I feel that it's something I have to talk about. And I think the reason I haven't talked about it before in my podcast or in my writing that I do is because I don't know where it's going. I don't know how long this process will take to go on. I don't think there'll be any time when it's finished and completed. But it's an ongoing thing, it's a journey, and it's something that I'm willing to do. I suppose I am actually a therapist. I work as a cognitive behavioural hypnotherapist. What a mouthful. Sometimes I describe it as an integrative therapist because I use different types of therapeutic approaches. And this is one reason why I've decided to go on this inner journey, because I invite my clients to take on their own inner journeys. And I don't feel that I can really do that if I'm not prepared to do the same thing in my own life. And when I started doing this process of sort of self-exploration, I didn't know how deep it would go. I've had therapy in the past, which was incredibly successful. And this is a long, long time ago. And the reason really that I had the therapy was because I was just absolutely riddled with anxiety at the time. I also had a lot of anger. And this is literally decades ago. And initially I didn't want to have the therapy. I was working with a Jungian therapist, so it was analytical therapy. But in the end, it changed my life for the better. It just made me more confident, more relaxed, more calm. And I never thought of myself as being fixed, so to speak. I didn't think, oh, the therapy's over. I just thought I'd got to a point where I can cope with my life so much better. I was so much more confident. And at the time, I was working in a completely different career. And it wasn't really until I became a therapist myself that I started doing my own inner exploration. And I suppose I could have gone on with this simple phobia that I have of spiders and also of webs. I mean, being afraid of spiders' webs is an easy thing to handle because you don't really have to confront spiders' webs. If I see a spider's web in my house, in my flat, I can just vacuum it up. Spiders are different because they actually move around and you see them and they suddenly appear and they run. And it's a very common phobia, the phobia of spiders. So it's something that I thought I could live with. If I see a really big spider, I could get someone, a kind person who isn't an arachnophobic, to move it for me. But as I started realizing that this was more than just a sort of simple phobia. The reason it's called a simple phobia is because it's a phobia of one thing. So yeah, and so I've been living with this phobia for all my life, really, for most of my life since I was a tiny child. And the only reason I decided to look into it more deeply is because I'd become a therapist, and it's a great thing to work on when you're learning about exposure. And I have done exposure for arachnophobia in the past, actually, but I'll speak about that at a different time. When you're learning about different types of exposure, it's a great thing to work on. I've got this thing that I can work on in myself so I can see how it feels for my clients. However, it's like opening a Pandora's box. I didn't realize how deep that went. The phobia is really a symbol, an indication of deeper issues. And another thing is that it's not just about me being scared of spiders, because I know that they don't bite, and not in the UK where I am. I know that they're useful around the house. They get rid of all the flies. I've nothing personal against spiders, but there's a part of my brain or part of my mind that has somehow learned that spiders are a threat. And I'm finding it almost impossible to reach that part of my brain. I've tried so many different ways to tell that part of my brain, maybe it's the so-called the reptilian part of my brain. I think that's where it is, or the limbic part of my brain. I've tried to educate it and say, look, spiders aren't a threat. And there are several ways that you can do this, and some of them have been moderately successful. So maybe I'll talk about those as well in another YouTube. But for today, what I want to talk about today is the most recent thing I've been working on, which is trauma release exercises. And this is part of my journey. So there's so much I want to say about why I've come to this point. And also, this is not to disparage trauma release exercises, or TRE, which was developed by David Berceli. In fact, I think it's an incredible process, an absolutely incredible process. And it's something I'm completely committed to following through. It's a journey, and on that journey, I think it's because I'm dealing with a lot of trauma that I've been keeping under control for decades, for all of my life, since I was 3 years old, really. In fact, I think it was about the age of about 5 and I had to start school. That's when I started really, or my mind started repressing this trauma. And it's now coming out as I do these exercises. And it's obviously a really difficult process. And the difficulty is that it makes me feel so tired. And it's not normal tiredness. In fact, just by coincidence, I've actually been on I love hill walking. And I've actually been on a camping and hill walking trip last week. So earlier this week, I spent 3 days trekking with a big backpack through a remote area, and camping. I spent 2 nights camping on my own, and I just loved doing that. I did find it really exhausting, and I think the TRE process, this trauma release process, probably made it more tiring for me. And that's not to disparage this process. It's just part of what's going on. Maybe I shouldn't have done it at this time. But anyway, I really enjoyed the trek despite the tiredness. And afterwards, I remember I got home late on Wednesday evening, went to bed, and the next morning I couldn't get out of bed until late the next day. I had the morning lying in bed trying to recover, and the rest of the day I got up, I was doing things, putting all my stuff away, washing things. And so I was quite active, and my body felt a bit weary. I had some aches and pains, but it was just a normal process of feeling a bit tired, but really building my energies back. And the day after, I was more active. I was doing some cleaning around the flat, and I felt a little bit weary in some of my leg muscles, but apart from that, I was fine. And then the day after that, so that would have been the Saturday. So that was 3 days after I'd got back. I did some more trauma release exercises, and it was significant that my body wasn't tremoring. I have to speak more about how the trauma release, what happens when you do these TRE exercises. But I actually wasn't tremoring as much as I had the previous time I'd done them. And yet the effects seemed to be more powerful, because almost immediately, this was on Saturday, it was 3 days after I got back from my trip, I had been feeling quite active, but I just suddenly started feeling really tired. And I went to bed at 8 o'clock that evening. I read for a wee bit, but I was asleep by 9, and I slept almost 12 hours. I woke up at 8:30 the next morning, feeling groggy. And I stayed in my pajamas all day, which usually I don't. I'm not really the kind of person that has pajama days or duvet days very often. But I was just exhausted, just totally drained. And I don't think it was from the results of my trip. It was from the results. It was due to the TRE, and I'm not blaming the TRE. As I say, this is a process I'm willingly going through because I'm releasing long held trauma, which is a wonderful thing, I think. But it's not an easy thing to do. So that was on Sunday. I was just in my pajamas all day. I was up and about, but I was really tired, really drained. And now it's Monday, and I have so much I was planning to do. I was actually planning to do a bird survey, which I do regularly. I do it twice a year, and this year I'm actually doing a bit more. It's for a charity. So it's a bit of voluntary work, and I really enjoy doing it. So I was planning to do it today because it's a nice day. So it's a good day to get out and look at birds. But I didn't get up until 10 o'clock. And I feel privileged that I'm able to do that at this moment in time. You know, I work for myself, so I don't have a job that I have to be at 9 o'clock. Because I'm just feeling utterly drained. In fact, I'm actually surprised that I'm looking better than I feel at the moment. It's weird. I feel like I've got incredible brain fog, but it's a bit better than it was yesterday. So I am actually able to construct a sentence. I'm just feeling it's really difficult to describe, and that's why I wanted to do this YouTube, just to talk about this and to introduce the subject, because it's something I was planning to talk about at some point, but I didn't know where it was going, and I still don't know where it's going. I don't know whether it's going to help me overcome my phobia ultimately. I hope it does. But it's taken me on a deeper journey than that. I feel that the phobia, in a way, has just shown me that there's work that needs to be done inside. And I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I'm really willing to take the steps and to endure whatever I have to endure on the way. It's a fascinating process, actually. There's another thing I want to say, because after I came back from my trip, I was looking forward. I was looking through all my photographs that I'd taken, and there was one photograph that spoke to me, and I've actually used it on social media as a sort of profile picture. But it's not the best photograph ever. It's actually quite dark and overcast looking, and it was taken as I was getting towards the first camp spot on the first day one of the trip, and I was really tired. I was carrying this big heavy backpack. I hadn't had any sleep the night before, which I think is partly due to this TRE process. I just thought it was due to excitement and nerves about going on this journey, but I'm not someone who generally has that level of insomnia, and I think there was probably more going on psychologically than I was aware of at the time. So I was walking along this track, quite a good track, towards these mountains, and I had a map and everything, so I knew where I was going. And at one point, I just saw this lovely cloud formation over a mountain in the distance, and it looked so romantic and just so beautiful. And I knew I couldn't really capture it on film, but I tried. I had my good camera around my neck, and I tried to get, the ISO settings. I'm not really a great photographer, but I did my best to try and capture that scene. And when I saw it later on, when I was looking through my photographs, it just meant so much to me. It was my journey to a place that I knew, but I'd never been to before, where I was going to stay the night. And it felt quite exciting and nerve-wracking at the same time. But that photograph speaks to me of my inner journey as well. I don't really know exactly where it's heading. And it's exhausting. I feel like a weary traveller, like I was on that actual journey last week. But it's sort of exciting as well. It's fascinating. It's something that I feel is one of the most important things in my life at the moment, maybe ever. And it's a journey into the unknown. So it's scary as well. And it's really a difficult journey. I don't have that physical 15 kilogram backpack that I was carrying on my actual trip last week. But I feel as if it's the same kind of endurance. It's making me utterly exhausted in a way that's almost difficult to describe. And yet, I'm up for it, you know? I feel that I have to do this. It's so important to me.